Mastering conversations, how to overcome social awkwardness and speak with confidence. Many people struggle with awkward conversations and social anxiety, making interactions feel forced and uncomfortable. It often happens in everyday situations, meeting a new colleague, attending a networking event, or even chatting with a distant relative at a family gathering. The conversation starts with a polite greeting, followed by generic questions like, "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" But soon, silence takes over, leaving both parties feeling uneasy. For a long time, people assume social awkwardness is a confidence issue, but in reality, it's a lack of conversational skills. Just like learning an instrument or playing a sport, talking to others is a skill that can be developed. The key to never running out of things to say is to focus on the other person. If someone mentions they just got back from a trip, instead of simply saying, "That's nice," ask engaging questions like, "What was the highlight of your trip?" or "Would you go back?" This not only keeps the conversation flowing, but also makes the other person feel valued. By practicing active listening, asking meaningful questions, and finding common ground, conversations become more natural and engaging. Social confidence isn't about talking more, it's about connecting better. Many people assume that being good at conversations requires natural confidence or extroversion, but in reality, conversation is a skill that can be learned and practiced. Often, awkward silences happen because people stick to surface-level topics and don't know how to keep a discussion flowing. Meeting a new coworker, attending a networking event, or talking to an old classmate can feel uncomfortable when the conversation dies out after the usual "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" questions. A common mistake is believing that talking more makes you a better conversationalist. In truth, the best way to improve your conversations is to listen more and ask better questions. Instead of responding with short, passive statements, ask open-ended follow-up questions. For example, if someone mentions they just moved to a new city, rather than saying, "That's cool," ask, "What made you choose that city?" Or, "What's been the best part of the move so far?" These questions create deeper conversations and show genuine interest in the other person. Another powerful method is finding common ground. People naturally connect with others who share similar experiences, hobbies, or interests. However, common ground isn't always obvious. Sometimes it requires probing and active listening. If someone talks about their weekend plans, instead of moving on, ask, "What do you usually do for fun?" or "How did you get into that hobby?" Eventually, you'll discover a topic that both of you enjoy, making the conversation effortless. By listening actively, asking engaging questions, and finding common ground, you can talk to anyone without running out of things to say. Social confidence isn't about saying more, it's about connecting better. Once you apply these techniques, conversations will feel more natural and enjoyable. Many people struggle with social awkwardness, assuming that their inability to hold conversations is due to shyness or a lack of confidence. However, the truth is that conversation is a skill, just like playing an instrument or learning a sport. Most people aren't bad at talking. They simply haven't practiced the right techniques to make conversations flow naturally. One of the biggest reasons conversations feel awkward is not knowing how to transition from small talk to meaningful discussions. Most interactions begin with simple exchanges. "How are you?" "What do you do?" But without direction, they quickly fade into silence. Instead of feeling stuck, the key is to ask intentional follow-up questions that keep the conversation moving. For example, if someone mentions they watched a movie over the weekend, instead of just saying, "That's nice," ask, "What did you think of it?" or "Would you recommend it?" This simple shift turns a dead-end response into an engaging discussion. Another essential element of good conversation is active listening. Many people listen only to reply, rather than to understand. When you focus on truly hearing what the other person is saying, you naturally pick up on details that spark further discussion. For instance, if someone mentions that they recently moved to a new city, instead of moving on, ask, "How has the transition been?" or "What's been the biggest change for you?" This shows interest and makes the other person feel valued. Finally, the easiest way to make conversations effortless is to find common ground. Whether it's a shared hobby, background, or experience, discovering mutual interests allows conversations to flow naturally. By listening actively, asking engaging questions, and building connections, you can turn any interaction into an enjoyable and meaningful conversation. Many people assume that being bad at conversations means they are shy or lack confidence, but the real reason is often a lack of practice in social skills. Conversations, like any other skill, can be learned and improved with the right techniques. One of the biggest mistakes people make is relying on basic small talk that quickly leads to awkward silences. A conversation usually starts with a greeting and general questions like, "How are you?" or "What do you do?" But if you don't know how to continue, the discussion dies. The key to avoiding this is asking intentional follow-up questions. For example, if someone mentions they went hiking last weekend, instead of just saying, "That's nice," ask, "What trail did you go on?" Or, "How did you get into hiking?" These deeper questions show genuine interest and help keep the conversation going. Another powerful strategy is active listening. Most people listen just to respond, rather than to understand. Instead of thinking about what to say next, fully focus on what the other person is saying. By listening carefully, you'll naturally find ways to continue the conversation and build meaningful connections. Good conversations aren't about talking more. They're about asking better questions and truly listening. Effective communication is not about talking more. It's about connecting better. Many people struggle with social confidence because they believe they are naturally bad at conversations. However, the truth is that conversation is a skill that can be learned and improved. Just like learning an instrument or playing a sport, the more you practice, the better you become. One of the most powerful ways to improve social confidence is to ask better questions. Instead of relying on generic small talk, engage in meaningful follow-up questions that show genuine interest. For example, if someone mentions they enjoy traveling, don't just say, "That's cool." Ask, "What's the best place you've visited?" Or, "What's your dream travel destination?" These questions make conversations flow naturally and prevent awkward silences. Additionally, active listening is key. Most people listen just to respond, rather than to understand. Instead of focusing on what to say next, fully engage with the other person's words. When you listen well, you'll always know what to say next. Confidence in conversation comes from practice, curiosity, and connection. Start small, ask better questions, listen actively, and watch your communication skills transform. You don't have to be naturally outgoing, you just need to be genuinely interested.